Sometimes you've got a situation when you've got a window that you need to put in a wall, and this window type wouldn't be available in the ArchiCAD library. In that situation, it's the simplest to just create your own window. So we're going to have a look at creating a window that has a fairly odd shape, a sort of semicircular type of window. I already have a wall in this project ready to go, as well as a sketch. These are just lines and arcs, a sketch of the window that we want to create. So we're going to use a slab tool, and we're going to assign materials to that so we can have aluminium or timber windows and areas of glazing as well. So I'm just going to pick the slab tool, and I'm going to set the top of the slab to 100 and the bottom of the slab to 0. Now whatever's at the bottom of the slab that we're going to use, that's going to become the outside of the wall. I'm also going to use a cover fill for the slabs, just so we can see a bit clearer what's happening. And I'm going to click on the slab tool, hold the space bar down and click on the outside line. So now we've got an object like this. It's just a 100mm thick slab. Then the next thing I'm going to do is cut the holes for the glazing. So I'm going to select the slab again, make sure I'm on the slab tool, put the space bar, hold the space bar down again and subtract those holes just by clicking inside it. So now we've got this. This frame is 50 by 100, 100 comes from up here, and the 50mm comes from the sketch that we created. The next thing I'm going to do is to again use the slab tool, but this time I just want to put glass in, so I'm going to change this to the bottom to 50, so the glass is halfway through the frame and the top can be 60. So we've got a 10mm thick piece of glass in here, and just for display's sake we're going to change this to a light blue, and once again hold the space bar down to select the magic wand and click on those spaces, and this is what we've got. Now the very important thing to do is to make sure that the materials are correct. So I'm going to pick the glass bits and I'm going to change that to, you guessed it, glass. Then I'm going to pick the frame material and set the material to pine. So this is our sketch. So this is our sketched window using just the slab tool. Then I'm going to select the objects and go to 3D, just to make absolutely sure that I've got nothing else selected. So I've got just the window selected. Go to File, Libraries and Objects, Save 3D Model As, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to put this into my extras folder, and I'm going to call this semicircle window. Going to save that. Then I'll be asked a question whether I want to save this object as a door, window or an object. An object would have to be aligned vertically or horizontally in the view, or either in elevation or top view, but we're going to choose window obviously. I'm going to remove redundant lines from the symbol, and so it will appear a bit cleaner in the floor plans, and I'm going to leave it as editable GDL script. So later on, if you wanted to edit it, you'll be able to push save, go back to 2D, or my floor plan rather, Then I'm going to insert this window, click on the window tool, should be the first window that pops up, and it is, so it's automatically loaded into the library. Just remember, if you were travelling between computers and you wanted to use this object somewhere else, make sure you save it as an archive with the project, or make sure you remember to take the library part. So we can preview the window through the various methods through here, and push OK, and insert it into the wall, one side or the other. That's all standard as you would place in an ordinary window. Now I'll go to 3D and we have a look at it. And here is how the window has been inserted into the wall. Now there's obviously a little bit of a problem with this window, as the opening is just square. Because by default, no matter how complex the shape that you've drawn for the window, the opening will by default always remain initially square. So that's going to be the bounding rectangle for the shape that you've actually placed into the wall. Now we need to fix this, so the procedure is actually very simple. I'm going to click back to 2D, and I'm going to go back to the slab tool, and I'm going to set that back to 0 and 100. Although this isn't that important, just for the sake of it. Then I'm going to change the display to a contrasting colour. Again, this is not important, this is just for the clarity here. And with this slab, I'm going to trace the shape again. So if we have a look at what we've got now, we have a window completely embedded into our shape or our object. Then I'm going to pick this object, the newly created slab, which is the size of the entire window and doesn't have any openings in it, and I'm going to scroll to the very end of the horizontal toolbar, and under the ID I'm going to type wall hole, W-A-L-L-H-O-L-E, and this name is actually very important. Any slab object called wall hole will be used for cutting a shape into a wall of exactly the same shape. So again, from 2D I'm going to select all those objects and make sure there's nothing else selected in 3D. I'm going to go File, Libraries and Objects, Save 3D Model As, and I'm going to save it again into my extras folder, but this time I'm just going to save it as wall hole. This is just for the exercise, we don't have to use this word, but I'm just trying to make it as clear as I can. Then we push save, and once again we get the same question. We use a window, editable GDL script, and save. Back in 2D, I'll deselect everything, go back to my window tool, and this time I'm going to pick this one with the wall hole. So then insert it into the wall and go back to the 3D once again, and there we can see the new object has been cut out of the wall correctly. So this object's now cutting an opening in the wall which perfectly follows the shape of the window that we created. But in fact, as we created, it's actually not following the window, it's following the slab that we called wall hole. Any object that has the name wall hole becomes invisible in the project. Following this logic, we could do this as an empty opening in a wall. I've got an outline of a window type here. I'm going to click on the slab tool, select the slab tool, once again call it wall hole, selected. So now I'm going to go to 3D, and in 3D I'm just going to say libraries and objects, save 3D model as I'm going to call this wall hole, just so that we know that this particular slab is called a wall hole as well. We're going to do something else in just a moment, so save all that as we did before. Go back to 2D. We'd actually do it in 3D as well, but back to Windows. Here's a new window called wall hole. Push OK, and I'm just going to insert it. Might just jump back to 3D again, and we can see there it is there. This can be adjusted like any other window. I'm just going to move it down a little bit here. So this is an invisible object that has the ID wall hole, and it's inserted into the wall and it's cutting a hole. So now I'm just going to do one more thing here. I'm going to pick this slab and this time I'm going to increase its thickness to 200 just so it's clear, and I'm actually going to rename this to wall niche, W-N-I-C-H-E. So wall niche is a very special word that has special meaning in ArchiCAD. It will create a niche, as in an opening in a wall, but not right through the wall. So with the slab selected, we're going to go back to this 3D view, and I'm going to save the 3D model as, back to the extras folder. I've actually got one here that I've already done. Save it, replace it, save it as a window, and hit save. So back to the floor plan. Now I'm going to insert this niche into the wall. I'm going to go to the window tool, click on the window niche tool, and you'll notice that both the wall hole and the wall niche objects have no previews because of their names. ArchiCAD doesn't see them there, so they become invisible objects. So the only way to actually have some sort of graphical representation of that would be to create a JPEG and embed it in the GDL. But for now, I'm just going to pick the wall niche, click OK, and I'm also going to confirm on the toolbar just before I insert it that this window is going to be inserted at 0 into the wall. So it's not actually pushed into the wall. This setting has been set to 0, and I'm just going to position it somewhere here. So it looks like it's looking out this way. So now when I go to the 3D, you'll be able to see that there's a niche cut into the wall, but it's not going right the way through. You can see it's not going through the other side. So it's basically a cut into the wall, but not through the wall. You'll be able to see that there's a problem with the way it's graphically represented. It's shown in a symbolic way, so it looks like it's cutting all the way through. And assuming that your floor plan cut plane is cutting through that niche here, you should be able to fix that fairly easily. First of all, we have to select it, and a word of warning, this object doesn't actually have any objects as such in it, it's just an opening. It doesn't show any of the nodes. They could be added as hotspots in GDL, but apart from that, the only way that you can actually select it by reading what's in the toolbar, or say Control F and pick a window using the Find and Select tool called Wall Niche. Once it's selected, I'm going to go to Floor Plan and Section and change it from Symbolic to Projected or Projected with Overhead, and the moment we do that, it's now going to be shown correctly. In actual fact, whilst this is showing as projected, you can actually select it and see the outline of it. So maybe it's actually a good idea to, before you actually insert the object, select the wall niche, and before it's inserted, change it to projected with overhead. And that way, you shouldn't have any problems selecting it at all. By creating a custom GDL object using a mixture of the frame, glass, the blue object there, which was the wall hole, and the orange object, which could be wall niche, you can actually create a fairly complex looking window. And I've saved this as a GDL object already, and I've inserted into here. And so here we've got a combination of wall hole and wall niche, and that looks pretty neat. So this is another way of achieving this result. The movie that is going to come just after here is the movie that was in the old virtual tutors, and that's doing the same sort of thing but using GDL. So rather than leave it out, I've left it in there because it's just another way of doing something that you might find a use for. Unfortunately, it's difficult to supply objects that cater for everyone's architectural needs. Windows in particular, not always round or square. Sometimes they can be strange shapes. So we're going to create a peculiar shaped window and show you how to make it work in your project. First of all, I'm just going to push S so we can snap to the grid, and I'm just going to draw a slab at this stage. Now there's my slab, and I'm just going to push S again to let go of the snap, and just going to move that up a little bit there. So there's my window shape, and I'm going to get rid of the grid display, and I'm going to select that and make it glass. Press G. Can't quite see that because it goes off the screen, so I'm just going to make it glass, put that 0 and 15 millimeters thick. So if I go to the 3D window now by going F5, we can see that window there. Now, first thing I have to do is save it. So I'm just going to go to this button here, choose the side view and place my eye at the top of the object, so it's like I'm looking down onto my window. So I'm up here somewhere and I'm looking down onto it as if I was placing it into the floor plan. Push OK, and there it is there. So now I'm going to save that by going to File, Libraries, Save 3D Model As, try Window. and I'm just going to save that to my desktop. But of course you'd save it into your library. I'm going to save it as a window, as an editable GDL script, and I'm going to push save. Now I'm going to go back to my floor plan here, go to ground. Now I'm just going to draw a wall, and I'm just going to make it start at 0 and make it 6 meters high, and I'm just going to draw the wall across there. So now if I select that window, we can see it's come up straight away, try window, and we can see there it is there, shaded view. I'm going to push OK, and I'm just going to put that into my wall. Now of course if I go to my 3D window, we'll be able to see that this is the result. That's what would normally happen. So what we want to do is select that window, go to File, Libraries and Objects, and we want to open that object. Now this is the GDL window. Then we click on 3D script, and once the 3D script is open, we scroll down to where we see the C prism, and this defines the actual shape of the object. So I'm just going to go just after the first number, drag down to just after the last number there, go Control C, which is Control Copy, and I'm going to type wall hole, space, and Control V, which is paste. I'm just going to paste those exact dimensions back in there. Going to check the script. The GDL script is OK. Push OK. Now I'm going to close that, and it's going to ask me to save it. So yes, I save it. Now we can see that we have that window placed in that wall, and the wall hole is correct. So it's pretty simple. We can still see the original window down there, and that's how we create an individually shaped window or opening in a wall.